This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a conversation featuring Terrence Hobbs from one of the greatest extreme metal outfits of all time, Suffocation, to share with you. The catalyst for the chat is due to the launch of the group's second ever live album titled Live in North America. It'll be released via Nuclear Blast on November 12. So that is the catalyst for the conversation, but it is truly an honour to speak to the great Terrence Hobbs. I've admired his guitar playing for decades now, it must be said. He is one of the primary movers and shakers of extreme metal guitar playing as it unfolded back in the late 80s and early 90s. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed participating in it. We're going to listen to a sample of the tune Pierced From Within, taken from the new live album, and then we'll jump straight into the chat. Here we go.
How you doing, Andy?
Hey, mate. How's things?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there, man. Just hanging in there. Getting some things together down here to really start to get focused on more writing, obviously, and some touring soon, you know?
How's the Zoomers been going? You've been enjoying them?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a few over the last few weeks. I mean, let alone just like, you know, friends and people that have fanzines, magazines, shit like that. You know, they've just been getting in touch with me here and there. So I've been doing them consistently, like, I don't know, over the last, maybe 10 months. But,
okay. Yep.
But not quite like this just because we have a release coming, you know what I mean? So when that release comes, then we try to cover every area that we can and make sure everybody knows about it. And I mean, you know, the record label's always behind that kind of stuff. So it's worth doing. You know?
Yeah. I got to say, I was giddy with excitement when I saw the name Suffocation come up, and then there was an opportunity to talk to yourself because I've loved your guitar playing since 1995.
Right on.
You know, love death metal, but your guitar playing in particular, it's just so tight and focused.
We try, man. At least I do. I don't know. It's a weird approach to music as far as I'm concerned. You know, I don't want to be too overly technical. You know, there's a lot of bands that do that sort of thing these days, you know, with the advent of new technologies and things like that. Now everything's so picture perfectly precise. And it's like, I don't know, it almost leaves a little bit of a non-human element to it, you know. But, I mean, it's great. It's great for records, man, because we get some really good material out there.
You do. So, look, just talking about the live album, though, because I know that's a catalyst for our introduction, but I have spoken to Derek about it. And Live in North America, and what I mentioned to him, I'm going to pass on the compliment to yourself. I said it was an exceptional display of musicianship from one of the greatest extreme metal bands of all time, and I mean that.
Well, thanks.
I wanted to tell you that. I've been wanting to say that to you for some time because it is important what you do. You know, what you're doing is meaningful and has been for a very long time. But my question for you after that is, do you feel as though you captured the essence of what makes you guys such a crushing act?
Well, I think in the live record, especially with Frank, I mean, some of the new members are really, they really pull their weight more than what people would think, you know what I mean? Because everybody likes to relate everything to the first and second record you ever done in your life, you know? But the newer guys in the band, Eric Marotti, Charlie Arrigo, you know, they really have embraced the vibe of Suffocation more than I possibly could have wanted, which is a great thing for me. And to have them playing live, especially with having Frank at that in particular point in time, to do the North American tour that we did here and be able to bring a live record out to you. Yeah, I think it really captured the essence of of what we are today and what we were back then. And especially nowadays, just because we were able to, like, I guess, record like maybe 15 or something or other shows, like fully, you know, with all individual tracks, be able to listen through it, find the best one that we felt was the best to bring to you guys. I think it definitely captured the live aspect of what we were doing, especially in the vibe of having everybody really being focused on doing it. You know, there was a lot of times where things were very iffy over the years, and you know, just more tough to get things going around. But having Frank there and having him put in his all, feeling comfortable with the songs we were playing, these are all songs that we've been playing for quite a while anyway. And just to capture that vibe, that actual vibe of a whole band being there together, definitely I think came across on this one. And Kristen Donaldson did a great job of mixing it after the fact. So thank you, Christian. Very awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I got to say, I think it's a better representation of your live sound than the Quebec live album.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, obviously both of them were live. But as I said, like back then, I don't think the technology coming off of live mixing consoles was quite as good, like back during the Close of a Chapter record, you know? Yeah. And with this one, it was a lot better because a lot of venues had changed over to digital consoles and you were able to capture all that stuff in your computer as much as the venues had that equipment for it. So I think that really helped a lot to actually capture us live, you know? Because even with the Close of the Chapter record, that was done completely live, 2-track, you know, straight out of a board, more or less. And I mean, I think for the time and era that it came out, I think it sounded great. But I think that this definitely sounds a million times better.
Yeah, it's crushing, man. I give this feedback to a lot of people in your position. I listen to it when I'm going to sleep. It puts me to sleep. I had it on last night, and I just remember thinking, Jesus, that's tight. You know, it's just Christian's done a great job with the mixing too, to your point.
Yeah, he did. You know, we were also lucky because knowing that show wasn't like, let's say, the very first or the very last show of a tour, you know, because you go into a tour kind of cold, you know what I mean? Where everybody's starting to feel the vibe of getting into it and hearing everybody live on different stages. And at the end of the tour, usually you're just fucking war-torn by that time. And it's like, yeah, you may be rehearsed, but you're war-torn. Like, we kind of were lucky to be like right at that area where we broke in being warm and capturing it like in a venue. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. Yeah, and the crowd was fucking nuts. It was bananas.
Oh, you can hear that. Yeah, you can definitely hear that. And that's a good point, actually, with the crowd, i.e. fans. Have they been hitting you guys up for a new live album?
Well, I mean, fans have asked us for new material as soon as we come out with new material. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, shit, you guys came out with a new record. And then like a week later, they're like, are you working on the next one? And it's like, of course we are, but we also, you know, it takes a lot of time. It's not like you can go out there and, especially considering this is like our 11th, 12th record, something to that effect. And, you know, we are writing a new one. We're halfway through it about right now. So hopefully by the middle of next year, we'll have our new one set in stone and everything will be ready to go from that. But, you know, they're always asking for new material. I mean, it just seems to me that it's such a thirsty type of world in the underground metal scene. You know, everybody's looking for something new. Everybody's looking for something, you know, cutting edge, groundbreaking, maybe super noisy. I mean, a band like that to me from, like, let's say Australia is Portal, you know? That band is out of freaking control. And I mean, it's a very different band. It's not like a super neat and clean and tidy band like, let's say, Necrophagist is. But they have more of that dark and noisy feel to it. And I think that, and especially when I seen them live, I thought it was fucking amazing. But, you know, some people were like, what the hell's going on here? And I was like, I don't care. This is sick. You know, this is so fucking cool. So, I mean, you know, there's just that common, I don't know, line that we're trying to cross at Suffocation, where it's technical, but yet it still has catchy and it still has the musicianship. And, you know, it has songwriting, not necessarily like run-on sentence songs of a lot of pieces put together and just trying to be in extremo, you know what I mean? We kind of try to actually make music out of it all. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're very atonal, Caudle, aren't they? They're just up the road from me here, actually.
Are they really? Well, you wish those dudes, when you get a chance, say, "What's up? We got to hit some shows together one day." You know? hopefully, if we're all allowed to go back and play shows the right way, you may see us down there sometime soon.
Did you have to do any of those bloody sit down shows?
No, well, we didn't do those. I mean, it was kind of hard for us because, believe it or not, our drummer's Canadian. So when COVID hit, we were on tour with Belphegor and Hate in Europe at the time. And it was like, okay, we all have to fly home. So we disbanded the tour, which was the first time in any of our histories that any of us had to stop a tour over something like this. And we all flew home. Now, my drummer lives 8 hours away by car. It takes me like an hour or two to fly here, but he's Canadian. So us being in New York and him being Canadian, next thing you know, now we have border problems. You know what I mean? Just to get him back to New York to come and rehearse, where things were a lot easier before pre-pandemic, And he's actually at my house right now. We finally got him back down here. So things are looking up in the right direction, We have some shows coming up and stuff, but it was really kind of difficult for us because we couldn't get together the same way that we used to and be able to rehearse and be able to work on older songs and bring them into our sets and be able to go out and tour the way that we were supposed to. And after all these months, it's very difficult, especially for us, just because of that international aspect. And, if our buddies in Despised Icon were like, you need a drummer and we got your dude, and I was like, okay, man. And we got him and we've had him for, like 5 years. So it wasn't like we could just turn face and really go and just get a fill-in drummer for the time. No, it just wasn't right. That feeling wasn't right. The camaraderie wasn't right. We were all not in the room together. And just like the live album, we all were in the room together, being able to practice and rehearse and know everybody's feel. So what you got on the stage was what you got from the band as a live band, as opposed to, doing everything through Zoom or, face chat or whatever you may have, That shit kind of sucks. It takes the actual human element, I think, away a little bit, especially for us musicians trying to feel where everybody's hitting the same mark and, those cues and being able to improvise and, just do cool shit because we all know what each other's going to do, It's a little bit different doing it across the line, across the internet.
Yeah, to your point, I call it molecule interaction. You don't get it this way.
No, you don't. And I mean, I guess we had a little bit too much molecule interaction over the last few.
Indeed.
But I mean, that shit doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think it's pretty highly ridiculous that we're all into this point of, vaccines, you can't travel, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, granted, we had the measles and the mumps and polio and all that shit. You got to get a vaccine, go and get a vaccine, but it shouldn't be forced on anybody, in my opinion.
100%. 100%.
You shouldn't be stopping people from, pursuing their loved ones, being able to go out on tour, being able to work their job, because a lot of those things for people require international travel and shit like that. And it really kind of cut that drive for a lot of people across the world. And I think it was a pretty sad moment in time.
Oh, it's disgusting what's going on. It's, what's the old saying about never waste a catastrophe? Never let a good catastrophe crisis go to waste.
We can't even get Sky News on YouTube anymore just because they're saying that Joe Biden sucks. And it's like, you know what? He does suck. What can I say? He's not doing any good. We can't even watch your news, It's fucked up.
I'm so glad you watch Sky. So
I watch Sky. I watch everything because, a large part of our career in business, just from putting out albums is traveling and just knowing where you can go and what the rules are and knowing where you stand, And I mean, for most musicians, I don't know if they do sit there and actually watch the news as much as I fucking hate it, because I absolutely can't stand the news. There's nothing good on the news. It's all just miserable shit, but makes for great content, mind you, for songs.
Yeah.
It really does.
Sky is probably the closest to a legitimate news source at this point in time, though, I've got to say. I mean, they've got real journalists on there that are asking tough questions,
Absolutely. I mean, there are some out there, but, the powers that be like to censor that shit down. So we're not allowed to make an educated choice. We only have shit choices that they feed us, which is garbage, But anyway, to make a long story short, I want to get out there. I want to be able to come and play. My guys want to be able to come and play. And, knowing that we're metal and we can't be held down, nothing's going to stop us. Eventually, we'll get down to Australia and play for all you guys.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah. Oh, look, believe me, I could talk the politics all day. But I know we talk music, but yeah, mate, what's going on is just disgusting. I think at the moment we're being indoctrinated. All this extreme left-wing ideology, this fucking Marxism that's just so pervasive in public institutions.
It's disgusting.
It's revolting. It's revolting the way that they're dividing society on the basis of identity, sexuality, and immutable characteristics.
Yep. That's it, man. That's all they want to do. And they want to cry that whole racism shit where people haven't been fucking worried about that here in the fucking States for fucking God knows how long. And they just keep throwing it back at you and ramming it down your throat for no reason. It's really awful. But you know what? At least we still have the metalheads out there that are listening to music, and that's what we strive to do more than anything else. Other than talk about what the fuck.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant up top about what you are doing with the band being so important, because people are suffering. Yeah. And they need bands like Suffocation. People like me, mate, we need extreme metal. It's how I love funk, disco, and extreme metal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not closed-minded to music either. You know what I mean? I listen to a lot of different things because, who wants to, I don't know, you can't be going 700,000 miles an hour every single minute of the day, So there's a time and a place for everything. And I think music is meant to be moods. And, we all want to be able to do the same thing, whether or not the style of music is different or not. And I think that because of this pandemical bullshit that we got going on, it's hit it from the biggest of musicians to the smallest of musicians in the same way. And I think that should be enough to tell people, hey, this has got to stop, It's really fucked up.
Well, it's up to us as the people to vote these bastards out of power. You got that arsehole Cuomo in New York. And
I'm so glad he's fucking gone. I can't even stand it. It's like, thank God. But we still have other assholes that are here. Like, Bill de Blasio. This guy is, the mayor or whatever, and he's just he's terrible. He's just terrible. They're all on the take and corrupt, and it's like, it.
They're all just trying to become president like Gavin Newsom. They're all just trying to on this Democratic ticket
they absolutely wanted anybody else other than Trump, and that's just because Trump was like, I guess, he's egotistical and, he's high on himself and all the rest of that shit, talks about himself a little bit too much. But, for what he was doing for America, I don't think it was that bad in hindsight compared to what we have now. And, I think that we really need to make sure, especially in our Congress and in our government, that it is free. It really is free and fair elections. You know what I mean? Not this thing that everybody now kind of thinks that everything is rigged. It's like, what choice do you really have? Why would people vote if it's rigged anyway? So that trust issue, I think, is gone out of here.
Well, the Democrats are actually pushing for no identification at the voting booth, and also mail-in votes
without
cool. Identification.
Now that means the whole world can vote in America, which is insane. But hey, I'm not saying that people should not be able to come here freely, should not be able to come visit, come here, seek work, the American way of life, quote unquote, or at least the past version of it. But, it has to be done by some type of rules, like any other country in the world. And I don't understand why it's so hard for these people that run our country to figure that out.
Well, I think it's about power, to your point. You already touched on it. Subjugation and power, and the more chaos there is, it's easier to control people. And I think that George Soros and these people who fund these ultra left-wing organizations that are causing so many problems at the moment, they know that. That's their modus operandi.
Yeah, that's absolutely the truth, man. It is definitely a power thing, But as I said, I'm hoping that things pan out more for next year as well, only because, we were slated to come there and we were slated to do a lot of other down under type of shows, to your rival Kiwis and all the rest of that. We're just going to try to get over there and so on and so forth. And right now we haven't even had the opportunity, man, and every time from the point that the tour got canceled, all of our bookings and everything to come to Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, Japan, all that stuff has been canceled, and it's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So who knows if we'll be able to do it next year the way that we want to. Let's all just hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed, mate. Yeah. Hey, if it's okay with you, I want to go back in time a bit because you are one of the originators of the extreme metal, broader extreme metal genre. You've been there, if not since the first note was struck. You've certainly been in the scene that long, but you've been a contributor that entire time, if you like, way back since the late 80s. So, but my question for you is around Scott Burns, another famous name.
I think he's a phenomenal man. I mean, he's done work on some of the greatest bands ever. You know what I mean? He certainly did great for us, and I don't have a bad word to say about the man. What I can tell you is he'll make you work in the studio. That's for damn sure. So for the musicians that like to cut and paste and splice and edit, it wasn't like that for us. We actually had to go and play it, and it's still like that today because he's instilled Scott Burns since that day back in 1990 or whatever. He instilled a lot in us on, especially in me, the older members of the band that are still out there fucking doing their thing. He really instilled a lot of integrity in how to record and how to go about it, I think, in all of us. And still to this day, we remember that like very well. So, from that, it was a very big learning experience, being like one of the first real engineers for us to work with. But it also was really, really educational to show you what you should be doing in order to get that record to sound the best, And I got to thank him for that, because without that, I don't think I'd even be where I'm at, anywhere near close today.
Yeah. Thought the studio was the great leveler. I came up in an era where you had to get it right in the studio from the start of the song to the end too when you're playing. And to your point, I didn't realise that he was that was part of his philosophy. But what are the unique characteristics that he brings to the band setup and recording do you feel makes him so great?
Well, I mean, I just think the man knew his craft in that studio right from the beginning. So for us coming in, being a new band, he had already worked with so many bands, and I mean, very professional bands as well. At that time, I was just turning 21 years old during the recording of Effigy of the Forgotten. So for me to go into the studio and actually sit down there and learn how to mic cabinets and see what was going on, see what it meant to see what would it take to get the drums to sound right. Understand just the different forms of equipment that were in the room. To actually tracking it to what would sound good. Just to even just producing, like taking pieces of music out or putting it in certain areas to make the song sound more listenable. Like he really is, he's the man, there's no other words for me to say about it, but he's the man. And I mean, I think if you listen to his past recordings, even, like let's say Obituary Slowly We Rot, which they did on an 8-track and they gave to Burns to mix, it holds up till today, as an 8-track, kind of like the Beatles, still hold up today from those early 60s records and things like that. So, I really think he's fantastic. I think he's a fantastic guy. I think he's a fantastic engineer and producer,
The other blast from the past, your partnership with Doug Cerrito was one of the most important partnerships in extreme metal history. So what qualities did Doug bring to your partnership that you feel made you guys so good?
Well, I mean, with Doug, it was always a good thing. I mean, Doug was on a different side of the spectrum than me, not necessarily in writing riffs, but wanting to push ourselves further, further along the way. So thinking ahead of ourselves and making riffs and structuring them and just pushing to be extreme. It was like we both really fed off of that a lot. And I mean, he's still my friend to this day. You know, every time that we run into each other, it's always a good time. And which is a fabulous thing. Although the music has changed, his interest in Suffocation has changed, his interest in playing the style of music has changed somewhat. You know, but back in those days, we were just really excited to play metal, and when we wrote a riff that we all grooved on, that we really liked, that we thought, it always made us push each other a little bit further to write other material that was more, let's say, brutal technique, thought out, thinking more ahead of ourselves. And with that, I got to thank him too, because, you know, that kind of experience and that kind of vibe, being young, really helped to keep that alive in me and with the rest of the guys that are newer since, you know what I mean? For real.
Yeah. The other fellow was, of course, Mike Smith. I mean, Mike's drumming and percussion is just, I mean, you go back and have a listen to Pierce from Within, you know where I'm headed. So are you still in touch with Mike? And
yeah, we still have a relationship. I mean, we weren't really getting along that well, but that's all been squashed in the past. You know, we tried it. I guess we just have clashing personalities because we had tried it once, the band broke up, we tried it again, and you know, things just didn't really work out. Not going to get into all the details of it, but you know, we're still in touch with each other. You know, we still have the crown and ground of all the old albums that we did together. You know, same thing with Frank Mullen. He still has a very good relationship with Mike as well. And every now and then we pop up together, and everybody will get together in some way, shape, or form, whether or not like we pop up at a bar together or just an outing of one of our friends and families that are all in common. We still run into each other. So things are still good. Things are calm. And I think everybody has matured a lot more since the times of all the turmoil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Did you face a lot of criticism back in 2003 when you decided to reform the band?
Well, there was always criticism because certain people just didn't want to deal with other people. And like, you know, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer because, you know, I had been there since the beginning. So it was just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to play back in the same band I was a part of from the beginning. And basically, you know, it was hard going in getting each member to want to say that they were going to do it because that wasn't really the case. So, you know, from that point, once the band had gotten back together and the lineup that it was, you know, certain people were like, well, it's not the original lineup. I'm not going to care. But those are those metal elitist people that, you know, because they bought a record and listened to it for 30 years, think they're a part of your band and they just want to, you know, they leave no room for growth or expansion or anything, or even just giving anything a chance. So with that, I just took that all with a grain of salt, and so did the other guys. And we just did what we wanted to do at the time, you know? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Roger Patterson from Atheist.
Yeah.
Did you ever perform with him?
Oh yeah. Back in the days, we had performed with him, Kelly, and all the other guys from Atheist. Way back in the beginning of our career, early 90s, 91, 92. When Roger died, it was kind of sad because we had met the Atheist guys and we really all had gotten along, you know, at a very small shows. In fact, other people like George Corpse Grinder would frequent that in particular venue. A lot of the Ripping Corpse guys would be there. Human Remains.
Eric Rutan,
yeah. Eric's great. There's just, you know, there was just a ton of early musicians that would always frequent this one club in New Jersey because that's where the shows were going on Sundays. And that's where we would go and play. And of course, we had played with a lot of great bands back then. You know, from Monstrosity to Ripping Corpse, Human Remains, I mean, Candlemass, you name it. There was just tons of bands. And we really became good friends with them at playing those shows in those venues. And once Roger died, it was a sad day for fucking bass players all around the world. I mean, especially for me, you know, maybe people don't remember him that well, but he was a fucking animal on the stage. The guy, he beat the death out of his bass and fucking had more energy than you could possibly believe, you know? And it was really great to be able to experience that from back in the day that some people just won't, you know?
I'd go so far as to say he's the most accomplished extreme metal bassist ever.
For me, I would have to say, yeah. I mean, looking back in retrospect, I can only imagine what he would have been like now if he was still alive.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, we still have other great bass players. I mean, we got Steve DiGiorgio out there who's always been holding it down. You know, you can't, Alex Webster's, you know, people of that nature. And they're holding it down for Roger, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that they were all just as well influenced by him, just like we were.
Yeah, look, I say what I say about Roger with absolute reverence and mad respect toward Alex and Steve. I've spoken to Steve at length. Yeah. Tremendous guy, tremendous bassist, extremely creative, and I love what he's doing on the fretless there. Just great. We're so blessed at the moment, aren't we, with these great musicians that we have around us.
I mean, it's sad when we lose them, but yeah, we still have some really great ones out there, so people should make sure that they support them as much as they can through these fucking really trying times, you know?
Mm. So mate, a couple more questions for you. I've always been interested to understand which guitarist inspired you to play the guitar.
Oh, man, there are so many, and it is going to be a never-ending list. But, I mean, I've had so many guitar players inspire me, you know, from B.B. King to Jimi Hendrix to Robert Johnson. And, I mean, the list goes on from there. I mean, Jimmy Page was influential when I was very young. You know, Angus Young, AC/DC, that whole thing. But from there, it just got even more heavier, you know, when it came down to like Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi, you know, the Iron Maiden, the Ozzy Osbournes, that whole entire episode, it was just like, I was just listening to guitar players left and right. And I'd have to say that like maybe the three most influential for me would have probably been like Yngwie Malmsteen, of course, Slayer, Jeff Hanneman, Kerry King. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, you know, Yngwie Malmsteen, Randy Rhoads, Tony Iommi, they all have their little place in my heart. None's bigger than the other. It's just there, you know?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So, I mean, it just went down the line. It really did.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, but because it's a big jump though from those sounds to what you're doing here. So was that just what was going on in the scene at the time, and you guys were all inspiring each other? You heard Trey and you went, "Holy shit, I'm going to do this," and you sort of took it the different direction.
I mean, it went like that. Like, you know, we were always listening to things that had guitars in it, and we always were inspired by the heavier, darker tones in music. You know. Like, so when I'm saying the Jimi Hendrixes and Rob and Jimmy Pages and so on and so forth, I mean, maybe back then it was considered dark, but not quite as dark as like when you got to Diary of a Madman or when you got to like Mob Rules or, you know, things of that nature, even with Dio, you know, like Ronnie James Dio and all that stuff. Like those guitar players, they were the more solo guitar players. They weren't the rhythmic, speedy players. And like Metallica, for example, like when I heard Ride the Lightning and I heard Master of Puppets, it was like really, the show was over. It was like, oh, okay. You know, that kind of guitar sound, I love it. That speed of the drums, I love it. The technicality in the guitar solos, I kind of love it like that. Like, and it was just a big clusterfuck of influences that kind of, you know, because as more aggressive music became more available, we were just soaking it up, you know what I mean? And that's all we wanted to do was be kind of extreme, you know? So, you know, we were very influenced by all of those things coming up the line, you know?
Influenced and extremely influential you are.
Well, I'm glad that people like our stuff, at least a little bit, you know? It is something that you have to develop a palate for. So, you know, most of the time you play this kind of music for any average soccer mom, and she's like, oh my God, what's this kill your mother, kill your father stuff? Then you have to go and put on Dying Fetus just to make sure that, you know, you get that affirmation. You know? So.
Definitely. Yeah, or Portal. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Hey, look, I'm a householder these days, got a mortgage, got 2 kids, so I've got a full-time job, but the music never leaves you. It's in the heart. It's in the heart. It's here, man. And the reality is, mate, I think, you got to do the work as a kid to get into it. There's a big jump from Metallica to you guys and Morbid Angel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But stick with it. I say that to the young ones. I say stick with it because it's meaningful and it'll connect with your spirit and your soul.
Exactly. And I mean, you know, if any of us old schoolers like did our jobs right, you know, the younger generation will take a look back from all the new stuff that they're learning about in school, take a look back to the shit that we were listening to because we're the old farts, and go, oh, now I see where they got it from. You know what I mean? And hopefully that will reflect in, in society in the future, because, the young kids now that have YouTube, that can learn how to play music quickly, that don't have to deal with teachers, that have the internet as a guide, like they're the future of where music's going. And I hope that they look back on the past to musicians like us and like Cannibal and like Deicide and like, Morbid Angel and, Slayer and before,
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that they get a good listen to it and can put two and two together,
Mate, final question for you. Do you have a favorite Suffocation album?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. Obviously, the first things that I've ever done are always my favorite. So Human Waste, Effigy of the Forgotten are my favorite. I think, Music Technicality. I think Breeding the Spawn, even though it didn't sound that great, was one of my favorites. Difficult record to play, I think Pierce from Within has become, a favorite of mine just because that was like the next, I guess, cutting edge one in feedback that I got from people all around the world that were like, this album's awesome. And of course, we still play songs off of it live in our set, and it has just become, so they're all really my favorite. They all have something to give back to me from that time and point and place. But if I had to give it to one of them as my all-time like favorite one, and this wouldn't be like, this is like a fraction of a hair difference between all the rest of them, in my opinion, would probably be Pierce from Within. I think that was kind of like our most cutting edge record at the right place at the right time with the right resources, the right members. I think that one over the course of the years it's withstood the test of time, and I think it still will. Hopefully.
I had it on last night, and I got to tell you, I believe that album is timeless. I think it's like Altars of Madness or Covenant. It's
that's what I mean. It's probably it's probably so hard for another musician to make that kind of assessment. I'm not saying that you didn't pose a good, tough question, because it was good, but I think for any musician out there that's got a collection of records that they have made and that they've been a part of, it's really hard to kind of pick one and say it's your favorite, because there's always those things in one album that it's like, fuck, I wish it was on that album. Oh, fuck, I wish that was on that album. You know what I mean? Oh, shit, I wish I could have changed that little piece right there just a little. So, there's those little nuances that really make it hit home for me. And as I said, it's a really, really very small margin why I would even make that choice,
I get you. You got so many killer albums. There's not a dud in the bunch. If you love extreme metal, my view is that if you love extreme metal, you love Suffocation. There you go.
Right on. Well, I hope that, coming up over this next year, that the new stuff, which is really, it's super aggressive stuff, you're not going to miss a beat with it. Hope you guys get a chance to go out and get it and hopefully give it a chance. It's going to be a little different. It's not Frank Mullen on it, but it's still
Suffocation.
It's still going to be super. Yeah. The guitar playing, the lyric patterns, it's all going to still be there. So no worries.
Well, thanks so much for making the music that you've made. I think it's meaningful. A lot of people feel the same way, and can't wait to see you guys down here again.
Thanks, Andy, man. Really appreciate it. And to everybody out there, listen and pay attention, stay heavy, support the local underground. Give Andy an extra listen or two because he deserves it. He's been sticking it out for you guys. And stay safe, and hopefully we'll come down there and we'll be playing for you and hanging out with you soon.
So good. So awesome. Thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, Andy. Anytime, man. Just keep an ear out and an eye out. We'll be there.
For sure, mate. No worries. Well, thanks again.
You got it.
No worries. Talk to you soon.
Anytime. You got it, my friend.
Cheers, mate. Gotcha.
That chat with Terrence Hobbs from Suffocation is easily in my top 5 all-time conversations that I've conducted for the podcast. Magnificent. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. If you like what you heard, go across to scarsandguitars.com, where you'll find many more conversations. Maybe not like that one there, that was quite special, but many more conversations that resemble that one there. If you like your hard rock, heavy metal, extreme metal, that sort of thing, you're going to find plenty of chats to wrap your ears around. So that's it. Until next time, take it easy, and it's a very goodbye for now.